Hi, and welcome to this podcast, the IELTS, OET, and UK MLA PLAB 2 Made Easy podcast for medical professionals. My name is Kalsoom, and I specialize in training doctors and nurses to get the score they need in IELTS and OET, and also training doctors on how to improve their clinical communication skills for UK MLA PLAB 2. The aim of this podcast is to arm you with authentic advice from someone who has been teaching these tests, especially IELTS and OET, for over 10 years. I share the core fundamentals of these tests, the essential information, strategies, and advice on what you should be doing and what you need to avoid doing. Anything and everything to make sure you keep moving forward in your preparation and getting you closer to achieving your scores and getting your dream job abroad. I understand and appreciate that your time is busy as medical professionals. You have very limited time, so I do try to keep the episodes short. And one of the advantages of podcasts is that you can listen on the go. So before I get into the main topic of this episode, there are a few things that I'd like to bring to your attention that you can find in the show notes. So you'll find lots of links in the show notes. And firstly, you'll find the link to my free training for OET called OET Success Training, which is a series of 5 videos that take you through all aspects of the test. And I share how you should be preparing and how you can improve your skills. And this training alone has helped so many doctors and nurses get the score they need. If you would like to train with me for OET, then you'll find the link to my flagship OET Success membership group and also a little video which explains how the training works. You'll also find a link to my free PLAB 2 Core Clinical Communication Skills webinar. This is a webinar I delivered earlier last year, where I go through the key clinical communication concepts that need to be present in any consultation. It's an invaluable resource to help you not just for your PLAB 2, but beyond the test and in your careers. If you would like to join my clinical communication mastery for UKMLA PLAB 2, then just drop me an email. This is a group training program of only 8 doctors. So I only take 8 doctors at a time, only 8 doctors in one group. This is to make sure that everybody in the group gets enough practice and feedback. So if you're interested in joining that, then just drop me an email, which leads me to the last thing. You can find my email address and how you can contact me and connect with me on LinkedIn. Hi, and welcome to this episode. So this episode is all about OET listening, Part C. We're going to look at what makes listening Part C so tricky, the most common mistakes candidates make, and most importantly, how to fix them with simple, effective strategies you can start using today. Now, Part C is a section where many doctors and nurses lose marks. They feel the most overwhelmed. They're second guessing themselves a lot, even if their English is quite strong. So why is that? Why is Part C listening so difficult? So in Part C, you'll hear 2 long recordings, often an interview or a presentation, so monologue style. And these aren't casual conversations. They're structured, quite pacey, quite fast, and packed with professional language. You'll get 6 multiple choice questions for each recording, testing your ability to understand attitude, opinion, and inference, so reading between the lines, and testing your ability to follow arguments and track shifts in ideas. Now, here's the problem. Most candidates go into this section still in Part A, Part B mode, where you're listening for specific words or data. But Part C isn't about what was said. It's more about what the speaker means. And that's a big, big difference. And this is something that students really fail to understand. And this is where they go wrong. So that's probably the first mistake that I want to point out. The second mistake
second most common mistake is that students listen very passively. You're hearing the words, but you're not actually processing the tone. You're not processing the intent or the viewpoint, the opinion, the emotion behind what is actually being said. So, for example, the speaker might say, some clinicians still believe this approach is effective, although the data suggests otherwise. Now, if you're still listening passively, you'll miss that the speaker is disagreeing with the traditional approach. The right answer is hidden in the tone and in the contrast, not so much in the vocabulary. And this is something that you need to train yourself to do, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. Another mistake is many candidates only glance at the questions as the audio begins, and that's too late. You need to know what you're listening for before the speaker starts talking. So understanding the questions and the options before you begin, before the audio begins. Another mistake is falling for distractors. So OET is very clever. One of the options will usually include a phrase that matches something you heard, but it's actually not the right answer. So we all know about distractors. So for example, the speaker may mention a term or a phrase, but then go on to reject or criticize it. But if you stop listening too soon, you'll fall for the wrong option. So it's really, really important that you stay engaged with the audio throughout it's being played, and not fall for the distractors. So what do we do instead? So I've highlighted the main issues with OET OET listening. So what do we do about these problems? How can we fix it? Well, here's the good news. Part C is a skill. Yeah, Part C listening is a skill, and any skill can be trained, can be built up by practicing it again and again and again and again. So if you're someone who is struggling with Part C listening, don't despair. Yeah, the problems I've just mentioned, that's you with one of them or maybe all of them, then don't despair. This can easily be fixed, and that's what we're going to go through now. So let's go through some strategies to improve your scores and to improve your listening. So the first thing is to predict the answers or predict the focus before the audio starts. So not predict the answers. You can't really predict the answers, but predict your focus before the audio starts. So what do I mean by that? When the 90 seconds of reading time starts, don't read everything flatly. Instead, look at the title of the talk, the interview. Read each question and underline the key words. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in detail. Try to guess what kind of attitude, opinion is being tested. Is it agreement? Is it disagreement? Is it concern? Is it caution? Try to predict that as much as you can. Obviously, you can't predict it entirely, but you can get a general idea. Now, this mental preparation helps your brain tune into the right kind of information. And this is a skill that you need to practice by itself. Yeah, so you need to get as many listening papers as you can, and you need to time yourself for 90 seconds and go through the questions as much as you can. How you manage to read the questions in the 90 seconds, and with practice, you should be able to do it. And it does take practice. And this can be a game changer. If you can read the questions and highlight key words in the 90 seconds before the audio, you're way ahead of everyone else because you're fully prepared to listen. And as the questions come, you know what you're listening for. You're aware of the options and, more importantly, the difference between the options because you've highlighted the keywords, and that can guide you when you're listening. Now, this also reduces the amount of reading you need to do while you're listening. And this is very important because listening and reading at the same time under exam pressure is not easy. So by being able to go through the options beforehand, it allows you to focus more on the audio and leaving you to just read the key words that you've already highlighted. And again, this requires a lot of practice, but this is very much achievable. And I've helped so many students get to this exact point, and their scores have increased dramatically. Where, they were failing, where Part C in particular was, really dragging their marks down to the point where they are not passing listening. They've managed to get their scores way up and they've passed their OET. So this is something very, very achievable. And we'll talk about how as we go along. The next tip I'd like to give you is focus on tone, not just vocabulary. So you need to train yourself to listen for hesitation, enthusiasm, doubt, criticism, emphasis, change of opinion, any kind of contrast in opinion. These are the clues that tell you what the speaker really thinks, and you need to practice this. And how do you practice this? I have many, many podcasts on this. So go back into the podcast, the episode list, and go through the listening ones, and I'll tell you, I go into a lot more detail about it, but you can practice this by listening to things like TED Talks. I rave about TED Talks. I think it's a fantastic resource, and there is a podcast about this on the TED Talks, and BBC health interviews. So go onto the BBC website, go into the health section. There's lots of audio and videos you can listen to and watch. And as you listen, pause and ask yourself, what's their attitude here? Are they in favor or against this? What contrasting opinions do they put forward? And you need to expose yourself to as much listening as possible. Have a variety of audio to really sharpen your skills. And by doing this, you'll sharpen your reading skills, and you'll improve your emotional listening, which is the key to Part C. Another tip I can give you is use the options to guide your listening. So each question has 3 options. They are not random. They reflect different angles on the same point. So before the audio starts, read the options. Try to paraphrase them in your head, or at least highlight key words and phrases. Notice what kind of information each option is targeting. Is it fact? Is it opinion? Is it concern? What is it? Highlight it. And then when the audio plays, you'll recognize the moment you've landed on the relevant part, and you'll be ready to choose the right option based on the meaning, not just the words. The final tip that I would like to give you is probably key as well. And it's something that students really fail to do. They focus so heavily on the options that they forget about the actual question or the question statement that comes above those options. So you have to understand the question before the option. So the options will distract you. And if you think about it, you're actually answering the question that's there. You're actually answering the question. So the question needs to be forefront in your mind when you're listening. And this will help you to choose the right option. So if you keep all the options in your mind while you're listening, you'll just get confused because, like we've said, there are distractors in there. And you can't possibly keep all 3 options in your mind and listen at the same time and choose the correct answer. You're going to get confused. So what you need to do is, in that 90 seconds reading time, because you've highlighted the keywords or phrases in the options, and you also need to do the same thing in the question. What is the question actually asking you? So when it comes to actually listening, you're keeping the question in your mind, and you're thinking about what the answer is to that question. Now, if you use that approach, you will listen out for that answer to that question. And that will naturally lead you to the correct option. And because you've already highlighted the keywords and the options, you will be able to pick out the options, the right option, more efficiently, more quickly. So it helps you to stay really, really focused. So let's summarize what we've talked about. If you're struggling with OET listening Part C, it's probably a combination between your listening skills and in particular listening for attitude and tone, and a combination of your answer strategy. So, like with anything, this isn't something that changes overnight, by listening to one TED talk or something on the BBC website, listening to one thing isn't going to change your listening skills and improve your listening skills overnight. You have to be committed to doing this regularly. Commit to do 10, 15 minutes of focused listening practice each day. And if you do that over a period of time, over a couple of weeks, a month even, you will see a huge impact, a huge improvement in your listening skills. And, if you focus on listening for attitude, tone, and inference, and reading the questions before the audio begins and highlighting the key words and practicing that skill, watching out for distractors that reuse vocabulary but twist the meaning, and practice identifying speaker opinion through active listening, then you will improve your listening skills by tenfold. You will be amazed on how much you would have improved your listening. So again, this takes practice and that takes time, but if you're willing to put in the work, you will see the results, I promise you. I hope this episode was helpful. Do let me know in the comments. There is a comment section, a comment link in the show notes. So please do let me know what you're struggling with and what you thought of this episode. And until the next episode, take care and keep working hard.
I really hope you found this episode helpful. I always enjoy getting your feedback, so do drop me an email and let me know your thoughts. Also, if there is any aspect of OET, IELTS, or PLAB 2 that you find challenging, then let me know and I'll do an episode on it. In the meantime, thank you for listening and make sure you share this podcast with your colleagues and on social media so more people can benefit. And some parting advice, especially to those who have failed to get the scores that they've needed in the past and are retaking any of these tests. It's not enough to just listen to what you need to do to improve your skills and scores. You must implement the advice and practice. You have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone because that's where real progress is made. Remember, nothing changes if nothing changes. Take care and keep working hard.